Since you're all quiet, why not start a few minutes early? Since we are standing between you and freedom. So this is not a good place for me to be. We have a couple of three terrific presentations for you that you're going to hear. Okay, we have three presentations that you're going to... we don't know if they're terrific. We have no clue. But I hope it's going to be terrific, because otherwise you're all going to leave, and we don't want you to do that. We want you to stay. So my name is Sam Watts. I get to serve on the board of the Canadian Alliance, and that means that they put my arm behind my back and twist it, and I get to moderate sessions like this, which I actually enjoy doing. So I'm glad to be able to do that. I also have the privilege of serving on the National Housing Council of Canada. So the fun piece of that is that I get to whisper in the ear of Minister Fraser, and he has to listen to me, whether he likes it or not. But my day job, my real job, is that I get to serve as the CEO of Welcome Hall Mission in Montreal, Mission Bon Accueil en français. It's an organization that's been around for 133 years, and no, I am not the founder. I had that question once. I guess I looked old to them, but so our organization is obviously very closely connected with efforts to house people, to provide emergency services in a variety of different ways. We are also the largest direct-to-public food security organization in the city of Montreal, so we touch a number of bases of making sure that people who are in situations of precarity are able to get from A to B to C and hopefully arrive at where they want to be from where they are currently. So without any further ado, I just want to acknowledge that we like to continue the process of acknowledging the lands that we're on as we start these sessions. So we had a terrific blessing this morning from Elder Will. And so we do want to acknowledge at the start of any workshop that we're on unceded territory and that we're guests here. And we're glad to be. We've been warmly welcomed. And we are, at the Alliance, committed completely to the process of reconciliation. That's part of the ethos and part of the DNA of the Alliance. So I mention that off the top because we think it's important, and I think you do too. So we'll get started with presentations. The presenters are going to introduce themselves. They're going to take about 20 minutes each, is that right, to present to you. And then we're going to do something a little unusual. Rather than a Q&A coming from the audience, we're going to create, I'm going to say 6 corners, but there are only 4 corners in the room, so how do we do that? We'll find a way, where you'll be able to have discussions in small groups with whomever you are most particularly interested in. Actually, you can move from group to group to group, but it'll allow for a more, dynamic process of discussion rather than just a back and forth Q&A. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to try that out. We think it's going to work, but it's going to be up to you to make it work. So without any further ado, Marina, you're first. Everybody, please welcome Marina.
This is a really nerve-wracking place to be as like a raging introvert, so bear with me, everybody. Thanks so much for having us here and the warm welcome and just generally joining on this Wednesday afternoon. I know it's been a long day and just really jam-packed couple days in general. As Sam mentioned, my name is Marina Sloutsky. My pronouns are she, her. I wanted to begin by thanking the amazing folks I'll be speaking with today. It's always very inspiring to present with colleagues with as much in-depth knowledge of the sector as Lisa and Emily, so I'm really grateful to be able to share the space with them today. As Sam mentioned, in putting this session together, we wanted to bring you kind of a one-stop shop for an affordable housing discussion. I find that when our 3 organizations present together, it allows folks to get a lot of their questions answered in one place and in one time. We also have HICC here today to also talk and connect with you after. We have some funded proponents in the room to add an additional layer of networking and connection. and discussion for you to be able to pick their brains. So we're really grateful that they've joined us as well. And so we hope that the session is useful for you today. I'm just going to figure out how to work this. Perfect. I like to start off with a bit of an intentional start at this conference specifically. I think a lot about kind of all of our journeys and what through this sector and how it affects how we're all showing up here today. For myself, I started my career as a social worker. I'm still a registered social worker. I worked at an intimate partner violence shelter doing crisis line and safety planning for women and children and gender diverse survivors of family violence. And then did mental health work for about a decade, where I worked with individuals with serious mental health and addiction challenges in supportive housing, inpatient settings, and in community mental health through assertive community treatment. I also did some work around the implementation of Housing First and coordinated access responses to homelessness in Ontario. I think that coming back to CAH is a great sort of reminder to all of our different journeys to and throughout the sector. And I think that as I considered the things that bring us together today, I really wanted to take a moment to first honor those for whom I know throughout all of these different paths that we've all been on. For those that I know we all work hard for every day. For me, it's my old clients and the communities that I've been anchored in. It's those folks that found housing and safety after months, years, and decades of homelessness, and it's those that passed before they could. And I think that these moments and spaces are a good sort of place to reflect on the year that's passed, and also prepare for the year ahead. So I appreciate you holding some space for my reflection and my very kind of rambly, intentional start. So thank you. As we kind of look towards the next year, I really want to stress today how available I am to meet with and speak with anyone and everyone. At the end of the session, if you have ideas, if you want to brainstorm, if you want to connect, if you've been working on something and you're not quite sure how to get there, please don't hesitate to reach out. My contact info will be in there, or you can come chat with us after the session as well. I'm very aware that CMHC can 100% feel like a really big place. And so I just want folks to feel like they have like a person or a human that they can chat with. So please don't hesitate. So we're going to start about talking about the resources and the toolbox that all of us have to support you with. I'm going to start first, and then my Centre and FCM colleagues are going to go after. And then we'll have the last 30 minutes of the session, as Sam said, to talk and connect and engage with various teams at CMHC, with the Centre, with FCM, with HICC, and also others in various stages of their affordable housing projects from ideation to completion. I also want to echo Sam's acknowledgement that we're gathering today on the traditional unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin people. In starting this way today, I also want to anchor our conversation in our collective responsibility to be informed of the past and ongoing consequences of colonialism, to be informed about the history of these lands, and to honor and protect and sustain these lands as well. So I hope that is our guiding light throughout our discussion today. For myself, I work on the outreach team at CMHC, and our role is really focused on sort of these three pillars. We're focused on knowledge transfer, ensuring that groups, nonprofits, municipalities have the information that they need to move forward with their projects, but also that they can address specific housing challenges that they're working on in their communities. So this work can sort of be summarized under information and funding and connection. In terms of information, we really try to ensure that you have access to the data, the research, the best practices that you need. Part of that work, for example, is we have a housing knowledge center, which I think is not super well known about and a bit underutilized. And so it stores all of our updates from our various innovation and research projects that we funded, their findings. I know there's a lot of funded proponents in the room as well. So folks that have completed innovative projects, they've created roadmaps, guides, things like that, that can be found in this space. We have lots of internal housing research, external housing research. For example, our lived experiences of evictions in Canada, research, and other topics such as housing need, right to housing, accessibility, etc. So this could be useful if you're looking into some best practices, you want to try to follow up on an interesting project you heard about, or you need some extra data to demonstrate need to layer onto your HIFAS data. So that could be something else that it could be useful for. In general, we do have access to, I would say, a pretty large toolbox in terms of guides, data, and different resources on issues that can come up during development. So if there's something that you're not finding that's feeling like a barrier, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're always happy to do a deep dive for you and share what we've got as well. In terms of funding, one of the pieces of work that we do is ensuring that everyone has the information that they need about our funding programs and potential external funding opportunities as well. That includes sometimes doing presentations to associations, communities, groups of stakeholders, community groups. So if some information sharing is helpful in your community, we often present to city councils, different sort of organizations, so folks know what's available. We would be, so if that's something that's useful, we'd be happy to help. Again, my info will be at the end. And then in general, we're also happy to have those initial conversations with you about what programs are available from our end for your project. And usually when you're at a point where you understand what you might want to apply for, you have some of your ducks in a row in terms of eligibility, we usually will support a transfer to one of our regional specialists, and some of them are here today, which is exciting. And they are located on the ground in communities. They help to sort of support you through the application process, validate all your information, and really support you to apply. They take a deep dive with you into the numbers. Thank God that they do that work. And so they're just such a great resource, and we're really happy to have them here today. But all of that to say that there's a bit of a continuum of support in place for you, that if you're looking to do something, that you're not sort of alone throughout that journey. This in general is all of our programs in a nutshell in terms of internally. We do, as I say, try to really stay in the loop in terms of both internal and external funding opportunities. So really trying to ensure that we're in the loop of all the resources that you can leverage if you're looking to do any kind of project to do with housing, whether it's pre-development, construction, repair, research, innovation, capacity building. So we're really happy to help connect you. And obviously we work really closely with our partners that it will be presenting after on all of this as well. So this is just wanted to highlight that there's lots of options, and we just really want to make sure that we get you to the right place. I wanted to highlight a couple examples of the types of projects that have been funded through our programs. The first one is coming from right here in Ottawa, so I wanted to highlight a really good example of an affordable housing program, affordable housing fund project. It's a project led by Multi-Faith Housing Initiative. It's a 40-unit building for veterans in Ottawa. They have access to meditative gardens, plant and vegetable gardens, physical training facilities, and outdoor space for service dogs. Veterans Affairs Canada provides caseworker support, and Ottawa Salis provides on-site counseling, so it's a really sort of holistic space. They also built the space through passive house design, so they achieved a 60% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, and then 8 of the units were accessible as well. So they received $6.5 million towards this project, and they received a land donation as well for $1 to bring this project together. The other one, we're really lucky to have these folks in the room with us today. This is a project called Embassy Commons. It used to be the Embassy Hotel. It's a project with 72 units that's owned and operated by Indwell, who you'll be able to chat with later in the breakout spaces. It's a project that offers supportive housing at deeply affordable rents for people who struggle with housing stability, usually because of mental health challenges. They were able to receive a little over 13 million from our affordable housing fund, about 59,000 from our seed funding. They also got some investment from the Government of Canada and the Province of Ontario through the Ontario Priorities Housing Initiative, and the City of London, and then their own contribution. So we saw different sort of layers of partnership come together in order to make this project happen. This is a space that contains 3 commercial spaces that they're able to sort of rent out. They have 72 units, as I said. 42 of those are under their enhanced support program. The 1-bedroom units rent at about $570 a month, and the 2 bedrooms at about $840. 10 of them are barrier-free rooms, and most of the units are accessible in general. So another great example of an affordable housing fund project that I wanted to flag, and also give a little shout out to to the folks in the room. We have, as I said, as you saw on that chart, there's so many programs available. I definitely don't want to go through all of them today, but the ones I did want to flag are ones that aren't usually available. So our Solutions Lab innovation program is not one that has been open for a long time. So I wanted to put this on the radar of folks in the room. This is the first time in a few years that it's been open. The goal of the Solutions Lab is really to develop solutions to complex housing problems, and also provide funding for stakeholders to come together with lived experts, with expert innovation consultants that we help you identify, and really kind of wrap around a problem and be able to come up with some solutions. The types of projects that we've funded, just so you have an idea, because I know sometimes this can seem really broad. So some of the projects we funded were, for example, the rights-based GBA Plus national shelter standards that I believe were just recently released. We also funded an African Canadian Affordable Housing Solutions Lab looking to deliver more appropriate affordable housing solutions for African Canadian communities, really focused on multi-generational housing as well. It's an open call, so there's no deadline, and this year's theme is advancing the community housing sector's collective mission of increasing supply. Similarly, another program that hasn't been open in a very long time is our demonstrations initiative. So this is the other option. This is already, if you have come up with a solution and you're looking to scale it, this really helps with sort of that process and kind of the replication process as well. It has a similar theme around increasing the supply of affordable housing for community housing providers. So something else that could maybe be a resource if you're looking to sort of take your idea to another level, or maybe collaborate with others to scale what you've been working on. Just going to leave these in here so it's a resource for folks for later. The final piece I wanted to discuss today is my team's role around, we've been calling it connection. One of the pieces of work that we try to do is really try to connect different potential partners together that are maybe working in the same direction, whether it be regionally, provincially, nationally, again, to ensure that you're not sort of alone on your journey, but also that you're able to connect with others that have had similar experiences or maybe faced and overcome similar challenges as well. Part of that work is focused on communities of practice. These are the ones that we've launched, with more starting soon, really wanting to create intentional sort of spaces for folks to access all the resources in one place, events, Q&As, have all the learning opportunities kind of under one umbrella, and also a space for folks to network. So in terms of our active communities of practice, we have an Atlantic space, a faith-based housing development space, and a community land trust space. And the ones in design are Quebec construction technology and municipal technology as well. So if this is something that's of interest, or something that you would like to explore to see how it fits with the work that you're doing, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I know that I have colleagues that are looking to add more regional groups as well in other areas of the country. In terms of our sort of capacity building connection piece is really focused on peer-to-peer learning. We hold regular sort of webinars and panels on various topics as we see needs come up. For example, one of the pieces of work we did last year was creating a panel and sort of an e-learning on partnerships. We at CMHC talk about partnerships a lot, and I find that often when we talk about them, some of the questions we get are sort of like, but how do I even get in the door? Like, what do I say to people? How do I create buy-in? How do I even start the conversation? And so we really wanted to bring together sort of folks that we saw were doing partnerships really well, and have them have those discussions and talk about their experiences and their lessons learned. And then we also took all of the sort of partnership resources out there and combined them into an e-learning. So that's something that I'm happy to share afterwards as well. We also have a couple NIMBY learning series coming up, one that is a municipal session, really focused on gentle density, systems changes, and a lot of the stuff around 4 units as of right that we're seeing as well. And then a nonprofit session also really focused on community engagement, proactive measures, and creating buy-in. So that's another kind of learning opportunity that will be coming up before the end of the year. So wanted to put these on your radar. I'm happy to chat with folks about it and to send you some links after if that would be helpful. If I was really tech savvy, I would have had like a QR code up here, but it's definitely too late. In terms of outreach, I've talked a lot about outreach today. There's someone in every region to help you find the info that you need and get you to the right place. You might already be connected to these folks. So if you wanted to reach out to me or to our general email, I'm happy to connect you. And again, we're here to help you navigate this journey as best as we can. I'm just gonna wait for everyone to stop taking photos. I think we're good. And then finally, I think what I'll say is, as I mentioned, as I mentioned several times, if you have an idea or something that you'd like to talk about, we're always, would love to see how we can make things happen for you. We'll be here to connect with you through the breakout group sort of setup that Sam was talking about. So for our breakout groups, we have our multi-unit specialists. So those are going to be here if you're considering a project, and they're going to be joined by Indwell as well. We have our Indigenous and Northern Housing team here also. We have outreach team. We have a few folks here from our team. We wanted to really talk to you about that third piece around learning opportunities, common themes that you're seeing, common gaps, communities of practice, tools, resources. If there's anything there that you might need from us for the next year, we'll be happy to chat with you after. And I think it's really time that I stop talking. So I'm going to pass it over to Lisa. Thank you, everybody.
I thought you were doing great. So speaking of tech savvy, I guess I'd just do one thing. My name is Lisa Kerr. I'm the Executive Director of the Community Housing Transformation Centre. We've been in existence since roughly 2019. We were open for 5 minutes when the pandemic hit. So we had a bit of a marketing challenge at the beginning in terms of getting out there and having people know who we are, but we've been picking up speed. I'm going to speak very briefly about the types of funding that are available. And actually, while I was sitting there listening to Marina, I was saying, imagine coming to a conference and having funders pitch to the audience, like, no, come see us for money. So that's kind of what we're doing here. So we work in a complementary fashion with both CMHC and with FCM. So I hope that comes across in this presentation. I did it. So very quickly, who we are, what we fund, the types of projects we have going, different initiatives, and then I'd like to focus a little more on Rent Smart. So quickly, by show of hands, who here is from a level of government, municipal, federal, provincial? Okay. Who here is from a housing provider? Keep your hand up if you also operate a shelter. Okay. Can you raise your hand if you just have shelter or transitional? Okay. All right, so we've got a good mix. Anyone from the allied professions, people who support people living, working in housing? Okay, tentative hands. Okay. I think being an ally is really important. Shout out to the allies. Okay, all right, so we have a mandate to catalyze the preservation and growth of community housing across Canada. Very briefly, community housing is not public housing. Community housing is housing that is governed by the community and not by a public entity or a city, a municipality, or a province. So that's who we work with, and that's who we also advocate for, represent, etc. When I say advocate, I don't mean real advocacy because that's not part of our mandate, but we support advocacy efforts for the community housing sector. We believe very, very strongly, so strongly in fact that it's in our strategic plan, that the current percentage of 4%, which community housing represents, needs to be more like 20, 30, or 40% of housing in what we call the housing market of Canada. So we are very strong proponents of growing, increasing, developing the space that community housing occupies and the percentage of the real estate world that we occupy. So that is a major part of our mandate. We have special projects, we have grants, we have services, tools, and resources. That's chiefly what we can offer to you. Our grants are divided into pan-Canadian grants. For example, we have sector transformation funds. That's what STF stands for, Fonds de transformation du secteur. Pour ceux et celles qui sont francophones dans la salle, n'hésitez pas, s'il vous plaît, à vous prononcer en français, à demander des questions, à discuter plus tard. Je pense qu'on est plusieurs dans la salle qui sont soit francophones ou bilingues. So the difference between these two is pretty much in the titles that you see there. You can either be a local project or you can have a project that you think will have sectoral impact. Sectoral impact can be when there's more than 1, 2, or 3 providers who come together with a notion that they believe will have replicability, or it is something that comes from a level of government or an entity that wants to share with a lot of people and grow the idea across the country. So that's what a sectoral impact project is. We used to have a ceiling of an amount of $750,000 for those projects. We've taken the ceiling off. Now we just want to discuss what that looks like because there's lots of potential in that field. Local projects are limited to mostly individual organizations. They can be local projects with more than one organization, but they're chiefly related to that organization's growth, development, capacity building, and that sort of thing. Regardless of which type of project you are a proponent of, and yes, I just ended with a preposition, which I hate doing, we implore you to please contact us first. We have lots of information on our website, which, by the way, is a very short centre, spelt the French way, TRE, centre.support. That's it. There's no org, there's no CA, there's no com, centre.support. You can find out all kinds of information about our funding there. Do not start an application and submit it and then wait and see what happens. It's not going to go anywhere. We really need people to talk to us about what is it that you're thinking. Because on the one hand, we might have great ideas for you to add to your project. On the other hand, we might know 14 other organizations who've done it, and you might save yourself some money and just have a meeting with them. We can organize that, we can hook you up. That's part of what we do. But either way, we are not an organization that does that sort of roll the dice, put in your application, see what happens in 9 months. We have extremely quick turnarounds. Our turnarounds are so quick, we've been told they're too quick. I am not making that up. It's actually on a website called Program Evaluation, federal government. Anyway, the point is that when you are approved, you can actually receive your money within a couple of weeks. So we want dollars out the door, but we have staff who are specialists in accompanying you with your project. What do you need to do? How can we help you get that? Who should you talk to? What other things could be interesting in this project? So that is part of the service that we offer. Really important to retain that. So either direction, if this is something that interests you, please contact us. Our website lays out people across the country because we are a pan-Canadian nonprofit. So we have staff all the way from Vancouver to almost Newfoundland. We used to have Newfoundland staff. We don't have her right now, but we're getting there. But we do have people from the east to the west, coast to coast and to coast. So that's one aspect of what we do. We also have provincial and territorial grants. This to me is a very exciting new development in the organization where we have partnered with what we will call loosely federal dollars because we are federally funded. And we will partner with provincial or territorial entities such as the government of fill in the name of your province. And because we're bringing federal dollars, it isn't a bilateral negotiation that lasts 18 months. It's a discussion, a plan, and then action. And then dollars are flowed into whatever community we're talking about. In this case, the Nova Scotia Community Housing Growth Fund, the Nova Scotia Community Housing Capital Fund, the Newfoundland Community Housing Growth Fund, and the Nunavut Fund. And I know, yes, I should be able to say that, but I haven't gotten to the point where I can stand up and say it in front of people yet. It is a growth fund that is in partnership with the government and the Nunavut Housing Corporation. Now, it looks like we only fund provinces and regions that start with N. We actually are talking to PEI right now, so there. But then we're working that way down the alphabet. So if you're after N, good for you. I'm just kidding. This is an ongoing amount of work that started, and I'm going to give lots of shout out and props to Nova Scotia. Our Director of Development, who's in the room, is from Nova Scotia. It is a sheer coincidence that he used to be working for Nova Scotia and now works for us. Just coincidence. All this to say, this is very much around relationships and building relationships with provinces and territories to get them to invest in their province and territory. So the federal portion is not as significant, but there are many provinces who aren't sure where to begin, how to go about it. That's where we come in, because we have a system that is set up. So we have a whole IT data Salesforce situation. We have people who know how to get money out and to get communities developed around capacity and their ideas. So we can take money from people and spend it for them. It's the best way to go about things. So that's what our community, provincial and territorial grants look like. We also have, so this is more stuff in terms of what I just said. This gives you an idea of the ratio. So for every dollar we put in, we get $10 to $20 usually from a province or a territory. And that's a great place to be. That means that the amount of money that we were allocated is now being leveraged, which is what we want actually everyone to be able to do with their assets. We have new initiatives that have been underway, some since the beginning, but have sort of been put on ice and now are building up speed again, others that are brand new. The resource inventory started out at the early part of the center when it was first kicked off, and it was a bit of a challenge and a bit of a slog. Now we just happen to have brilliant staff working in this area. The resource inventory is almost like a library, but where you as borrower can also be lender. So you, in your organization, might have some really great creative things you've done. We would like to hear about them. We would like you to contribute them to the resource library so that somebody else in an adjoining rural community, city, province, or territory can also learn about what great things you've done. So it's a resource library. You get to borrow, you also get to contribute. The organizational, by the way, the resource inventory has recently started doing kits. So if you have a theme that you're exploring, they can put together a kit for you. It's like a reading list. Not like the bad kind like when we were in school, but an actual fun reading list where you can actually have a kit for what you need to do. The organizational compass is a self-assessment tool. And this sounds like something that is very challenging. It's challenging, I think, in a fun way. I have heard people say, wouldn't it be fun if like the staff assessed and then the board assessed and you'd see who's right? And I'm like, no, that doesn't sound like fun actually. But it's a way to go about assessing 4 areas of your organization: finance, asset, community, governance. Thank you. That's why he's here. So the self-assessment part is critical. Nobody is scoring you. Nobody cares at the center. I mean, we care deeply. But we don't care if you've got an 82 in governance and a 62 in finance. Where we care is, can we help you with the finance part? Can we help you with things from the resource inventory? Can we give you a grant maybe that will increase your capacity in financial literacy? Like, that's the idea behind the self-assessment tool. It also generates an action plan, which you can take or leave, you can add to, you can subtract from, but it's developed so that based on scores that you get in your self-assessment, it will say, it looks like you could use some help here. Why don't you try this? So these are all based on general practices that are accepted as standards, but there's lots of opportunity to add to that. So you can come out with an assessment, an action plan, and then you can go looking for resources. in one of these 3 funders, for example. The Housing School is a new initiative. It is currently underway, under development. We have as a goal to upskill housing and homeless sectors, support frontline workers, support leadership, support diversification, support, and by diversification I mean revenue, but also support diversity of leadership, support succession planning, all kinds of things that can go into a housing school. At one point, we had a challenge on for renaming it something other than housing school. I'm still waiting for the results of that. It's being called the housing school so far. We may have been in a consultation near you. You may have been invited rather, to participate and give your thoughts. But this is actually an initiative that we hope will provide access faster and more easily to any level of staff working in housing and homelessness to improve on skills that they see as necessary. It can be organizational, it can be by team, it can be individuals. It's still under development, and we're hoping to launch very soon in the new year. Finally, Rent Smart. How many people have heard of Rent Smart? Okay. So Rent Smart enjoyed a lot of community buy-in, particularly, but not exclusively, but particularly in Ontario and BC. Rent Smart went through some transition, and the centre then picked it up, and we've decided to run with it. So Rent Smart has been not reimagined, but we are working on how to improve what existed, how to build it into something that will have a broader reach. So across the country, I'll just say, pour les gens qui parlent français, le Rent Smart original était uniquement unilingue, anglophone. Donc ça va être important, la traduction, le matériel. We have staff that are assigned to work on this, and they are also doing consultations and development around what Rent Smart will look like, and then it will be launched very soon. So in the breakout session that you've heard about, we'd like to focus on Rent Smart, what people think it needs, what we believe it's going to look like. However, we are open to discussing anything that you've seen in any of these slides, our funds, our grants, our initiatives, the resource inventory, whatever it is you'd like to talk about. And I think that's it.
Okay. All right. I got to start and end my day with Lisa. So it's been a really, really good day because I find her endlessly entertaining. So really great to share the space with you, Lisa. And actually, I was reflecting, I really appreciated, Marina, first of all, for you inviting me to join, but really appreciated your opening and kind of your reflections on your kind of path in this work. And then was thinking about Lisa and I first met through the Ottawa Alliance to End Homelessness. So sort of feel like there was a moment of like, oh, interesting how things kind of come together. So my history in this work, I spent 13 years working in community health. So did community development and community engagement work in low-income communities, worked a lot with our local affordable housing providers, and worked in a community that was experiencing a lot of gentrification and development, but also had the highest concentration of rooming houses, which are also SROs. And so we did a lot of work on trying to find strategies to retain that rooming house stock, to make it better and more livable. And that sort of led me into kind of going further and further into the affordable housing community and network, spent a bit of time working at the Alliance, and then arrived at FCM about 3 years ago. So you inspired me to share my journey too, and I was thinking about Lisa and I being in this room together. So really, really happy to be here. It's my first time at this conference, and I sadly am only here for this one session, but now I'm feeling like I need to come back next year. I'm gonna share a bit about sustainable affordable housing at FCM. And really so we call it SAW, Sustainable Affordable Housing, that's the acronym. So I might call it SAW, try not to use acronyms. We're actually terrible at FCM in using acronyms. We've got like a whole booklet to decode our acronyms, so, but I'll try to avoid that. But really SAW was designed and created to address the intersecting challenges of affordable housing and the housing crisis and the climate crisis. And so I'll talk a little bit about how our funding and capacity development is designed to support that. But also just wanted to describe a little bit about how those two crises intersect. The location, construction, form, the way that buildings consume energy, that directly impacts the contribution to greenhouse gas emissions and climate change, but also contributes to housing affordability and energy poverty. We all know that the stock that we currently have is aging. It's older, it's often a state of disrepair, requiring significant energy costs to operate in its current form. And we also know that people's housing situation can expose them or protect them from the consequences of climate change. And so I'll just share a little bit about the Green Municipal Fund, which is housed within the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. So very broadly speaking, FCM is an organization that represents municipalities across the country. Our membership includes over 90% of Canada's population. And the goal of FCM is to sort of bring that municipal voice to the federal government and advocate on behalf of municipalities on what their priorities are. One of the largest the largest program at FCM is the Green Municipal Fund. There are several other programs, but this is the biggest one. And it was an endowment that began in the year 2000 and then received another infusion of resources in 2019, which is where SAW was created. And the three programs that came out of that 2019 allocation were all energy-related programs, so sustainable affordable housing, community efficiency financing, and community building retrofits. But of course, with this creation of the Sustainable Affordable Housing Program brought a new audience to FCM who primarily worked with municipalities. And so we've really kind of grown that audience to nonprofit housing providers and co-ops, which is the vast majority of our applicants. So this is just a little bit of it looks like the energy moved somehow to the top of the screen. So that's supposed to be down there. So these are the funding sectors. So energy, transportation, waste, water, and land use. So I won't get into all of those because you can dive into a very deep hole to go into all of the different programs that we fund. And as I mentioned, the energy initiatives, which came out of the 2019 budget allocation, which is where sustainable affordable housing came to be. So just a very quick snapshot of what we offer. So we have a pretty strong focus and prioritization around pre-development grants to support that work that's required to really kind of scope out a project and kind of get it underway. One thing that certainly was acknowledged in the design of SAW, and we continue to really keep front of mind, is that the affordable housing sector is in the middle of a crisis, that they are generally small to medium-sized organizations with limited staff capacity, and most do not have that built-in technical expertise around energy efficiency. And so wanting to really provide those resources in the very early stages to begin the planning process, and then once kind of conceptualized, move into the study phase where there can be sort of more detailed feasibility studies and energy audits conducted to really fully scope out the project. We do have a pilot project stream, which is also grant-based. It is really, we know that everyone in the affordable housing sector is innovating, so it's like how deep you're innovating really is what we're looking at, specifically around energy efficiency and sustainability goals. So really looking for very ambitious energy efficiency projects that can be scaled and replicated both within that organization or in other parts of the country. And then we have two streams of capital project financing. So retrofit financing, which is both are up to $10 million for retrofits. It's up to 80% of eligible project costs. And then there's a grant that's based on energy performance. And this is really just to incentivize as deep as possible that the retrofit can go. So between 35 to 60% of the funded amount would be in grants, again, depending on the projected energy performance of the future building. And then the new build is financing for up to $10 million, up to 20% of eligible costs are covered, and grants are 60% of the funded amount. So 40% would be a loan and 60% would be grants. Just very quickly on eligibility, so municipalities, municipally owned corporations, and nonprofit affordable housing providers, including co-ops, are all eligible. The energy eligibility, so for a retrofit, looking for a savings of at least 25% from the baseline. And then for new builds, it's essentially net zero or net zero energy ready is what we're looking for, or a TUI, a total energy use intensity of 80. And just to give a bit of a context setting around that, a typical building would be around 200. So again, really at its core, this is an energy efficiency program really trying to drive ambitious environmental outcomes in the sector. And then the affordability criteria was really designed to stack with CMHC. So we've used the same affordability criteria of rents of at least 30% of the units are less than 80% of the median market rent. So just a quick overview of the application process, and I'm going to speak in a few slides about one of the projects we funded who are in the room today, so super excited that they'll be able to join in the conversation, and just kind of talking with them about that they have also experienced, which is great when you hear that, that we really do see this as a very collaborative process. So there is a pre-application process really just to make sure that you are an eligible applicant so that you don't kind of go through a whole process to only discover that you're not eligible. So there is a relatively brief kind of pre-application kind of eligibility screening process. And then once you get into the full application, it is very collaborative with the funding team. So you're assigned a project officer, and that person is with you along the whole journey. And the goal really of that application process is very much about how to make your application, your project as strong as possible so that it moves smoothly through our internal processes as well as peer review. And then we then present it to our council for final approval. And so our staff want to make sure that we've sort of considered everything that might come up in that process to make sure that it is as strong as it can possibly be. But really, once you get to the full application stage, it's like we're moving this project through as far as we can get it to approval. So there is a full application process where I won't get into the details of that, but obviously lots of information about your project, particularly at a capital project stage. There'll be lots of required documents that are needed, and obviously descriptions of the projects and the energy outcomes. Once that's ready, it goes into the peer review process. So there's external experts that do sort of more of a technical review, and they provide some feedback as well on that process to potentially strengthen the project. For capital projects, that there is then a credit risk, and that's where you would sort of determine the terms of the contract and the interest rate and the lending terms. And then the funding decision, we would make that recommendation to our GMF council and ultimately the FCM board, and then into the contracting stage. In terms of how we would evaluate projects, essentially, as mentioned, really this program was designed to help enable those GHG and energy reductions within the sector. So looking for those high impact environmental impacts in the project, but of course also acknowledging that the social and economic benefits are very important. So that factors into the evaluation as well. So looking at things like, increased resident health and comfort, increased affordability, decreased energy poverty, also looking obviously for a clear plan for implementation of the project. And then this piece, I'll just maybe spend a few minutes talking about, and I'll speak in a later slide to our capacity development work. But SAW was also designed to contribute to sector transformation. So again, really seeing the opportunity, both the challenge and the opportunity ahead of us, that there is this aging housing stock. There's also a need to build new housing to be able to address the need that we have across the country. And we have an opportunity as we build new stock and as we retrofit aging housing stock to do it in a way that is highly energy efficient, that will be sort of future-proofed against climate impacts, but also recognizing that there are supports, tools, resources needed. So funding is really important, but also really important that the sector and housing providers have people there and resources and tools to help them make their project a reality and make their project a success. So that is a really important element of this program, is that both in terms of building the capacity of individual organizations to take on energy projects, but also broadly in the sector as well. And we do that in partnership with the Community Housing Transformation Centre and our Regional Energy Coach program, as well as working with other affordable housing associations. So just getting into a couple of case studies that I wanted to share just to bring this to life a little bit. And just wanted to note Rick and Sabir are here from the Equal Housing Initiative, so they're going to join in the small group discussion after. So if I pique your interest, please come and chat more. They're there to basically share a little bit more about their project in a small group, answer any questions you have. I really love this project, and I mentioned at the beginning that I got really interested in rooming houses and SROs as a model, and so this project really kind of speaks to my heart. It's a heritage hotel, the McLaren Hotel in Winnipeg, in downtown Winnipeg, that is housing among the most vulnerable in the downtown Winnipeg area. And it is a very old building in a state of disrepair, and the Equal Housing Initiative has received, I think, 2 grants from FCM to essentially look at how they can transform this aging hotel rooming house into something that is energy efficient, that is beautiful, that provides all the supports that that the residents need. So hopefully, if that interests you, you can come and hear a little bit more about what they're doing. But doing really, really incredible work in Winnipeg. I had the chance to tour the building a couple years ago and was very inspired by the team and the organization that is driving this work. And then the other example is the Salvation Army Grace Village. This is in Edmonton. So this was a new build project. They received a grant of $3.3 million and a loan of $3.3 million. You'll notice that the ratios are a little bit different from what I mentioned earlier. We actually just changed this past April. We were able to add more grants to the program, knowing that that was quite important for the affordable housing sector. We had an opportunity to have more grant dollars, and so we were able to adjust the ratios essentially to provide more grant to loan. At the time that this was funded, it was a 50-50 split for new builds, so that's why the numbers look a little bit different. And so this project was created to support those in Edmonton that were precariously housed. They provide transitional housing as well as supportive housing for people that have experienced homelessness. So I thought really relevant for the content of this conference. And they have 175 units that they're operating now. So capacity building, just wanted to mention this before I wrap up. So this is actually a really key component of the work that we're doing at the Green Municipal Fund broadly, but certainly with sustainable affordable housing as well. So we have lots of tools and resources. We really are focusing, again, on energy efficiency. We know that the affordable housing sector is doing amazing capacity building work and have been for a long time. And so really we're looking to just enhance and complement where we can. So we do a lot of this work in partnership, and then really looking to just add that additional information around, as you're planning a retrofit or a new build, how do you do it in a way that's energy efficient? How do we sort of demystify some of the processes, reduce a bit of the overwhelm that might come with starting to talk about all of these terms? I certainly felt that when I started in this role, about learning about energy audits and ASHRAE and all of that stuff. So we're trying to really create tools that are really simple, really straightforward, very plain language to really help equip housing providers that are exploring projects like this to have the confidence and the motivation to take on a project, knowing that there's already kind of lots to do within the day-to-day life of an affordable housing provider. We also have a free building operators training. We do lots of webinars, workshops, presentations, go to conferences. We also have a peer learning network right now specifically for retrofits, knowing that those are particularly challenging for a variety of reasons. And so we have an annual learning forum where we bring projects together. Equal Housing was just at that learning forum, where we essentially provide lots of content, again, around how to do this work, how to build in that energy efficiency into a project. But most importantly, a chance to just sit with your peers and share your experiences and learn from each other, and also just to kind of keep the motivation up to keep going. Knowing that it's a very long road and there's lots of obstacles along the way. And so how do we sort of keep people motivated, connected, and inspired to continue on that journey? And then last but certainly not least, I wanted to talk about our Regional Energy Coach program, which we do in partnership with the Community Housing Transformation Centre. So they are the delivery partner for this program. There's regional energy coaches across the country. There's 8 coaches that are serving different regions and sort of subsectors of the affordable housing sector. And they're a free coaching resource. So any affordable housing provider at any stage, if you want to meet with a coach just to even scope out ideas, talk about funding opportunities, get access to some training and tools and support, or just someone to kind of start to like bounce some ideas around at whatever stage, they are there to support that process. And so again, completely free, and at any stage of a project, they can step in and provide that support, and really helping to boost, again, that support and coaching around energy efficiency in particular. The last slide is just a contact slide to get in touch with us, but I also have some postcards today that I'll maybe put out at the table here. If you want to grab that, it's just a QR code that can take you to our landing page. And also just wanted to mention before we get into small groups that my colleague Sherry is here as well. So she's going to be joining us in the small group. Sherry is the Senior Manager of Policy at FCM, very focused on housing and affordable housing and homelessness policy work at FCM. So if any of you are coming with some questions around what's FCM doing in this area, what are your priorities, what are you advocating on, Sherry is here to engage in those conversations as well. Or if you're wanting to talk more about funding, I'm happy to answer questions. And then, of course, we have Rick and Sabir here from Equal Housing to chat about their project and what their journey has looked like and what that's looked like. I think actually they're accessing all of our funding. So they would be a great person to talk to. They've worked with the Centre and CMHC and us, so can certainly share that experience as a peer of kind of how they've navigated the challenges, the lessons learned, what they'd sort of the tips and tricks that they would offer to all of you. Okay, thanks.
So this is going to be our opportunity for you to get into small groups, or at least visit with some small groups. What I'm going to invite is maybe for each of your groups to find the corner that you want to be in, and come on up here to the microphone so that they'll hear you. But that will give everybody an opportunity to be heard or to listen.
Okay, I'm going to do it this way. So first, we have from CMHC, we have our multi-unit team, who are the folks focused on specific projects, and they're here with one of their funded proponents, Indwell. So if I can have Jessica wave her hand. So maybe Jessica, if you want to pick a corner. Pick your favorite corner. So Jessica will be over here. We have our Indigenous and Northern Housing team here as well. Maybe we could do a wave. If you want to go in the back, maybe the back corner, okay. We have our outreach team, as I said, which is my team. We're going to be talking about learning and capacity tools and communities of practice. We'll be here because I'm already standing here. Then we have our Federation of Canadian Municipality folks. Can we have a wave over there in the middle? And then the Community Housing Transformation Center. Where do you want to go? Pick a spot over there in the corner. And then are our friends from Housing Infrastructure and Communities here? Is Carly here? Carly. Okay, perfect. Maybe if you wanted to set up here, so we do have folks from Housing Infrastructure and Communities here as well, if you wanted to pick their brains and see what they're working on over there. I hope that wasn't super confusing, but thank you so much, and we look forward to chatting with you in a minute.